All right, so today we're going to do a deep dive into Naval Ravikant.
Okay.
You sent over his book, The Almanac of Naval Ravikant, so I know you're pretty interested in this.
Yeah,
And we're going to really extract the absolute gold from this book.
for
I
sure.
think this is one that a lot of people are interested in.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're going to get into it.
Right.
And one of the first things that really jumped out to me was this idea of how he defines wealth.
Okay.
And it's not like the typical kind of, like yachts and whatever.
Right.
It's something much more practical.
Yeah, it's more of a mindset shift, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it really focuses on assets that generate income while you sleep.
Okay.
Um, so think of it this way.
Yeah.
Money is what you get paid.
Mm.
Wealth is what pays you.
Okay.
And I think that's like a big distinction that he makes.
And he really hammers home this difference between wealth and status as well,
Yeah, he does.
which I think a lot of us fall into that trap of keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's easy to get caught up in that,
Yeah.
especially when you see other people, doing well, and you feel like you need to keep up.
And it's easy to get distracted, I think, by that.
For sure.
I even remember that viral tweet he had where he was like, play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
That's right.
He's not really about that.
And that's something that he really emphasizes, I think, is focusing on the right game,
Right.
right? And not getting caught up in these kind of zero-sum games of status.
Okay, so how do we find this, this path to wealth? What is he suggesting?
Yeah, so he uses this really interesting analogy to illustrate this point.
Okay.
He talks about, imagine a room full of people.
Okay.
They're all trying to climb this status ladder,
Yeah.
right? And they're so busy trying to one-up each other
Yeah.
that they miss the elevator to wealth right next to them.
Right.
And I think that's just a really powerful way to think about it.
It's like people trying to impress each other on social media instead of actually building something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about focusing on creating real value, not just appearances.
So what does he say is this elevator?
Yeah. So he believes the key is unlocking what he calls specific knowledge.
Okay.
And this isn't something you learn from a textbook
Yeah.
or a course.
Yeah.
It's about finding this sweet spot where your passions and skills and unique experiences kind of collide.
So it's almost like figuring out your superpower in a way.
Right. And what you're uniquely good at.
Right.
What you can bring to the world that nobody else can.
But how do we actually discover that?
Yeah. So he argues that it often feels like play.
Okay.
It's something that you're naturally drawn to.
Yeah.
You can do it for hours without getting bored.
Right.
It's that thing that makes you lose track of time
Yeah.
because you're so engrossed in it.
Yeah. I'm thinking about the people who might be listening to this who are they're stuck in a job they hate.
Yeah.
They don't have time to play.
Right.
How do they even begin to figure out what that is?
So I think he talks about starting small.
Okay.
Maybe it's reading books in a field that intrigues you
Okay.
or taking online courses in your free time.
Yeah.
It's about exploring different avenues and paying attention to what sparks your curiosity.
All right. So let's say you found it.
Okay.
What's the next step?
So the next step is leverage.
Okay.
And this is about amplifying your efforts and impact.
Okay.
So he breaks down leverage into 4 categories.
Mm.
Capital, labor, code, and media.
Leverage, I think, is such a powerful concept.
Absolutely.
But I think when he talks about code being the most powerful form of leverage,
yeah.
people tune out.
Yeah.
Because they think they need to be a programmer.
Right. And that's, I think, where his message can be misinterpreted. Because he's not saying that everyone needs to learn to code.
Right.
It's about understanding how technology can amplify your specific knowledge.
Yeah, right.
So, for example, if you're a great writer,
Yeah.
you can leverage platforms like blogs or social media
Right.
to reach a wider audience.
So you can still use leverage even if you're not a tech whiz.
Exactly.
Okay.
But he also cautions that leverage without judgment
Yeah.
is like a car with a powerful engine, but no steering wheel.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
So how do we build that good judgment?
So he believes it comes from experience,
Okay.
learning from your mistakes,
Yeah.
and studying areas like microeconomics, game theory, psychology.
Yeah.
He's a big believer in lifelong learning, constantly seeking out new knowledge and perspectives.
And he also emphasizes this importance of accountability.
Yes, accountability is huge for him.
It's not enough to just have the knowledge.
Right. Yeah,
You need to be willing to put yourself out there.
exactly. You have to take ownership
Yeah.
of your actions.
And he talks about taking risks under your own name.
Yeah.
So what does that look like?
So think about someone like Naval himself.
Okay.
He was one of the first investors to publicly embrace cryptocurrency.
Okay.
And he also talks a lot about his philosophical views,
Yeah.
even when those were considered kind of fringe ideas.
Right.
So he was willing to stand by his convictions,
Yeah.
even when it meant facing criticism.
It reminds me of that saying, if you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product you launched too late.
That's a good one.
It's like you got to be willing to put yourself out there,
Absolutely.
even if it's scary.
Yeah.
And this kind of leads into another really crucial point he makes, which is the importance of playing long-term games with long-term people.
That's right.
All right, let's dive into that.
Okay.
Okay, so we've talked about wealth-specific knowledge, leverage, all this stuff.
Right.
But what I thought was really interesting was his perspective on happiness. It's not like the typical kind of fluffy self-help stuff that you hear.
No, it's not. It's very practical.
Yeah.
Um, and it's almost like he tackles happiness like an engineer would,
Okay.
breaking it down,
Right.
analyzing its components,
Yeah.
and even arguing that it's a skill you can develop.
Right. It's not just like some fleeting emotion.
Not
It's like
exciting.
you got to build it.
Yeah, you build it.
So how do we build happiness then?
So he really emphasizes the importance of finding happiness from within,
Okay.
rather than relying on external factors,
Okay.
like achievements or possessions.
It's like that old saying, you can't buy happiness,
Exactly.
but like on a deeper level.
Yeah, it's not just about money. It's about anything external.
Yeah.
It's about like really finding that contentment within yourself.
So it's not about hitting certain milestones or, acquiring fancy things.
No, it's not about the stuff.
Because I think a lot of us like get caught up in that trap
Yeah, for sure.
of like, oh, if I could just get that promotion, then I'd be happy. Right. Or if I could buy that car or that house,
Yeah.
then I've made it.
But he's saying, no, that's not it.
He's saying that's a trap.
Okay.
And he actually talks about how desires can be the root of unhappiness.
Really?
Yeah, think about it.
Okay.
You achieve one goal, and then what?
Yeah, you're on to the next one.
You're already on to the next desire.
Right.
Never really savoring the present moment.
It's like this constant need to be doing something, to be striving for more.
Yes. Always nexting, as he calls it.
It's exhausting.
It is exhausting.
So then how do we break free from that?
So that's where this concept of presence comes in.
Okay.
And Nabel believes that true happiness lies in fully experiencing the present moment
Okay.
without dwelling on the past or worrying about the future.
It sounds so simple,
It does.
but it's so hard.
It is hard.
Like, how do you actually quiet your mind?
Right. Our minds are constantly jumping from one thought to another.
Yeah.
And so he's a big advocate for meditation.
As a way to train your mind to be present.
Okay.
He even compares it to intermittent fasting for the mind.
I love that.
Yeah, it's giving your mind a break from that constant input.
Okay.
So it can reset and recharge.
For someone who's never meditated before, though, it can feel intimidating.
It can.
So what kind of meditation does he recommend?
So he's experimented with various types, from focusing on the breath
Okay.
to repeating a mantra
Yeah.
to simply observing your thoughts without judgment.
Okay.
And he even emphasizes the importance of physical well-being
Okay.
for mental clarity.
So taking care of our physical health can actually impact our happiness.
Absolutely.
I never really connected those dots before.
Yeah, there's a strong mind-body connection.
Okay.
And it's not just about hitting the gym.
Right.
It's about creating an environment that supports your well-being,
Okay.
your physical space, the food you eat, even the people you surround yourself with.
Right. And he has this fascinating theory about the 5 chimps.
Yes, the 5 chimps.
It basically says that you become like the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Exactly. And it highlights how our social circles can profoundly influence our thoughts,
Yeah.
our behaviors,
Yeah.
and ultimately our happiness.
If you're hanging out with negative people all the time,
Yeah, it's going to be much harder to cultivate a positive mindset.
it's like that saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Exactly. So choose your chimps wisely.
That's good advice.
But Naval also acknowledges that life throws curveballs.
Of course.
We can't control everything.
Right. Like life isn't always sunshine and rainbows.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do we deal with those inevitable challenges?
That's a great question.
So he has this really practical framework for dealing with difficult situations.
Okay.
He says you always have 3 options.
Okay.
Change it, Accept it or leave it.
That's so simple,
It is simple.
but so profound.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us get stuck in that cycle of resisting things we can't change.
Yes, trying to force things to go our way.
Exactly, and he believes that acceptance is key to finding peace.
Okay.
It's about letting go of the struggle and choosing to focus on what you can control.
So it's about taking responsibility for your own happiness.
Yes, rather than waiting for external circumstances to change.
Not hoping for happiness, but creating it.
Exactly.
We've been talking about building wealth and, and being happy.
Right.
But what about when things go wrong?
Yeah, that's a good point.
What happens then?
That's where I think this idea of saving yourself comes in.
Okay.
And it's not as dramatic as it sounds.
Right.
It's more about recognizing that you are ultimately responsible for your own well-being.
So even if we have mentors or we go to therapy or, whatever it is,
Yeah.
it's still on us
Ultimately, it's up to you.
to do the work.
Yeah, he uses this example of doctors.
Okay.
They can diagnose you, they can prescribe treatment,
Right.
but they can't force you to take your medicine.
Right. You have to actually do it.
You have to choose to take ownership of your health.
It's like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Exactly. And I
Okay.
think a lot of us fall into that trap
Yeah.
of wanting someone else to have all the
Yeah,
answers.
they're like, give me the magic pill.
Right, the quick fix.
Yeah.
And Naval really pushes back against that.
Yeah.
He says real change comes from within.
Okay.
And he even talks about how we need to be wary of gurus or, self-proclaimed experts
Yeah. Right.
who promise easy solutions.
Like the people selling those courses,
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about developing your own inner compass
Okay.
and trusting your own judgment.
Which comes back to that like building judgment thing.
Exactly.
But how do we actually build that like mental strength
Yeah.
to make those tough decisions?
So he's a huge proponent of meditation.
Okay.
He calls it intermittent fasting for the mind.
Yeah. I love that.
It's about giving your mind a break
Yeah.
from the constant noise and distractions.
It's so hard though
It is hard.
to quiet your mind.
It's a practice.
It's not a destination.
Okay.
Some days will be easier than others.
Sure.
But he's experimented with different techniques.
Okay.
Focusing on your breath, repeating a mantra,
Yeah.
even just observing your thoughts without judgment.
Okay.
And he suggests starting small,
Okay.
just a few minutes a day,
Right.
and gradually increasing it.
So find what works for you, basically.
Yeah, and be patient with the process.
It's like any other skill,
Exactly. Consistency is key.
Yeah. I'm also really struck by this idea that he talks about connecting physical well-being
Yes.
to mental clarity.
Huge for him.
It's not just like, sit there and meditate.
Right.
He's saying, like, take care of your body.
Yeah, he believes that taking care of your physical health, eating well, exercising regularly, getting enough sleep.
Like all that basic stuff.
Yeah, it all plays a role
Okay.
in your overall well-being, including your mental state.
It's true. I think a lot of us, we tend to compartmentalize those things.
Like, oh, I got to go to the gym to be healthy,
Right.
but then I'm still going to eat like crap and,
And not get enough sleep.
Yeah.
And then wonder why you're feeling stressed.
Exactly.
So yeah, he really emphasizes that holistic approach.
And this all ties back to this idea of like building good habits too.
Yes, habits are foundational for him.
Yeah, he uses his own experience with working out as an example.
Right.
He wasn't always a fitness enthusiast.
But he made it a daily habit.
Yeah.
And it transformed not just his physical health, but also his mental clarity and discipline.
It's like these small things we do every day
Yeah.
that like can really add up.
They compound over time.
Yeah, and it's not just about like money and all that. It can be, all these different areas of our lives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And ultimately, Naval argues that this whole journey of self-discovery and personal growth
Yeah.
leads to a sense of freedom.
Okay.
Freedom from negative emotions,
Yeah.
limiting beliefs, external influences.
It's like he's redefining freedom.
He is.
It's not just like, I can do whatever I want.
It's more like I can be who I truly am
Exactly.
without all that baggage.
Yeah, it's a powerful concept.
I like that.
And I think it's something we can all strive for.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Naval Ravikant,
Yeah.
I think one of the big takeaways for me is that he's not just giving us a blueprint for success.
Right.
He's
Yeah.
challenging us to take ownership
Yes.
of our lives.
Of your life, your wealth, your happiness.
It's about finding that specific knowledge that lights us up
Yeah.
and then leveraging it in a way that, creates value.
And having the mental fortitude to navigate the ups and downs.
Yeah, because it's going to be hard.
It's not going to be easy. It's a continuous journey
Yeah.
of learning, growth, and self-discovery.
So I think that's a great place to leave it.
Yeah.
For our listeners, I encourage you to take some time and just reflect.
Yeah.
What resonated with you from Naval's ideas?
Right.
What's one small step you can take today to, start building your own version of a wealthy and happy life? Don't be afraid to experiment, to make mistakes, to keep learning.
That's right.
And of course, if you want to dive even deeper into Naval's wisdom,
Yeah.
check out his book, The Almanac of Naval Ravikant.
Definitely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and until next time, keep seeking knowledge and keep growing.
Absolutely.